It was just a bit of fun, my wife, 6 months pregnant, said after having an affair with her friend from the cafe. I replaced the locks, stopped financial support, and sent her to stay with her parents. Months later, even they advised me to file for divorce. I'm 34, married to my wife Martha, 32. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5. We live in a mid-sized city in the Midwest, nothing glamorous, just steady jobs and a decent house in a quiet neighborhood. I work in commercial insurance underwriting, mostly long hours at a desk, decent pay, predictable routine. Martha left her marketing job last year when we decided to try for a baby. She's currently 6 months pregnant with what is supposed to be our first child. Until recently, I thought we were stable. Not perfect, but functional. Martha has always had a sharp personality. She can be sarcastic and blunt, and I'll admit I've brushed off comments before that probably shouldn't have been brushed off. She tends to frame everything as a joke when it's actually a criticism. If I forget something, she calls me useless. If I disagree with her, she says I'm being overly sensitive. I convinced myself that's just her sense of humor. About 4 months ago, she started spending more time at a cafe near our house. At first it seemed harmless. She said it helped her feel less isolated since she wasn't working anymore. She'd go mid-morning, sit with her laptop, talk to the staff. She mentioned one guy in particular, Harold, early 30s, worked there part-time while trying to build a small photography side business. She described him as funny and easy to talk to. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. Then the tone shifted. She started comparing me to him. Harold understands creativity. Harold actually listens. Harold isn't stuck in a corporate hamster wheel. It was always framed as light teasing, but it didn't feel light. If I reacted, she'd roll her eyes and say I was insecure. I started noticing small things. She guarded her phone more. She changed her passcode. She began taking longer walks in the evening, saying she needed fresh air because of the pregnancy. If I offered to come, she'd snap that she needed space and that I was smothering her. 2 weeks ago, I found something I wasn't looking for. And that's when everything unraveled. 2 weeks ago, I got home early because a meeting was canceled. I walked in around 3 in the afternoon. Martha wasn't home, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that her laptop was open on the kitchen table. She normally closes everything and takes it with her. I wasn't snooping. I was actually looking for the prenatal paperwork because we had an appointment the next morning. But her email was open. And right there, in plain sight, was a message preview from Harold. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't friendly. It said he couldn't stop thinking about yesterday and that he loved the way she laughed when they were alone. I didn't scroll through months of messages. I didn't dig for dirt. I clicked that one thread. It went back 3 months. It started casual. Coffee jokes. Pregnancy cravings. Complaints about me working too much. Then it shifted. Inside jokes. Private meetups. Him telling her she deserved excitement. Her telling him she felt seen. I closed the laptop. I didn't call her immediately. I sat at the kitchen table and tried to think clearly. We own the house. It's in my name because I bought it before we married. I pay the mortgage, utilities, everything. She has access to our joint account for household expenses. She hasn't contributed financially in a year, which was a mutual decision. She came home around 5, acting normal. She kissed my cheek. Asked about my day. I told her we needed to talk. She sighed before I even said anything. Like I was already being difficult. I told her I had seen the emails. She didn't deny it. She didn't panic. She leaned against the counter and said it was just a bit of fun. That I was overreacting. That she's pregnant and hormonal and needed attention. Just a bit of fun. That was the moment something in me went cold. I asked her how long. She shrugged. Like we were discussing a scheduling conflict instead of an affair. She said it started as flirting. That I had been distant. That she felt unattractive being pregnant, and Harold made her feel wanted. She kept repeating that it was not a big deal. That it was just physical. That men cheat all the time, and women are expected to forgive. So why was I acting like this was different? I did not argue about fairness. I did not debate double standards. I did not raise my voice. I stood up and told her to pack a bag. She frowned and asked what I meant. I told her clearly that she was leaving the house tonight. I own the property. I bought it before we married. I will not live under the same roof as someone who is actively sleeping with someone else and dismissing it as entertainment. That is when she switched tactics. She said I was overreacting. That I was being dramatic. That pregnancy hormones made her impulsive and I was punishing her for something temporary. I told her consequences are not punishment. They are boundaries. She accused me of abandoning her while she is 6 months pregnant. I told her I was not abandoning her. I was removing her from my house until I decide what to do next. Her parents live 20 minutes away. She has a safe place to go. She tried to sit back down like the conversation was over. I went upstairs, took a suitcase from the closet, and put it on the bed. I came back down and said, "You have an hour. If you refuse, I will call your father and explain why I am bringing you there." That caught her off guard. She started crying then, but it felt strategic. She kept saying, "This is insane. It was just a bit of fun. You are ruining our family over nothing." I told her the family was already compromised the moment she decided excitement mattered more than respect. For the first time since I confronted her, she looked unsure. And that uncertainty told me I had made the right call. She packed slowly. Not because she needed time, but because she thought stretching it out would make me reconsider. Every few minutes, she would stop folding something and start talking again. "You are seriously doing this right now. Over something physical." I stayed downstairs and did not engage. I did not want the conversation to drift into negotiation. This was not a debate. She made a choice. I responded to it. After about 40 minutes, she came down with one suitcase and her purse. She stood in the hallway like she expected me to apologize. When I did not, she switched back to anger. She said I would regret this. That no judge would look kindly on a man who throws out his pregnant wife. That I was going to end up alone and miserable. I told her she was not being thrown out onto the street. She was going to her parents' house, where she would have support. I even offered to drive her so she would not have to handle the stress. She refused the ride, said she did not need my charity. She walked out to her car without looking back. The house felt different immediately. Not quiet, just clear. Within 10 minutes my phone started buzzing. First from her, then from her mother, then from her father. Her mother accused me of cruelty. Her father was more measured. He asked what happened. I told him directly that Martha had been having an affair for months and described it as harmless fun. There was silence on the line. Then he said he would speak to her and call me back. An hour later he did. His tone had changed. He did not yell. He did not defend her. He just said, "This is worse than she made it sound." He told me she admitted it had been going on physically for some time. He said they would keep her there for now. I told him I appreciated that. That night I changed the locks. Not out of spite. The house is legally mine. She still had a key. I was not going to risk coming home to Harold standing in my kitchen while I was at work. The next morning I separated our joint account. I transferred her share of the remaining balance into a new account under her name and removed my paycheck deposits from the joint one. I was not going to fund her excitement. The first thing I did the next morning was block Martha's number. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. I knew the pattern. She would call repeatedly. She would alternate between insults and tears. She would try to drag the conversation into emotion instead of accountability. I needed space to think clearly. I did not send a warning. I did not announce it. I just blocked her. Within an hour, her mother texted me asking why Martha's calls were not going through. I explained briefly that I needed structured communication and that emotional back and forth would not solve anything. If there was a medical emergency related to the pregnancy, they could contact me directly. Otherwise, communication could happen through email or attorneys. Around noon, I received an email from Martha. Long defensive. She wrote that I was overreacting to something that meant nothing. She insisted she never intended to leave me. She described Harold as a distraction, not a replacement. She said pregnancy made her feel invisible, and I should understand that. There was still no direct apology. I read it twice and did not respond. Instead, I scheduled the consultation with a lawyer that afternoon. I printed the email thread I had seen. I documented dates. I wrote down timelines. If this turned into a custody situation, I wanted facts, not feelings. By early evening, her father called. His voice was steady. He said they had confronted her about whether she was still in contact with Harold. She admitted she was. He paused and then said, "I need to be honest with you. This is not harmless fun." For the first time, someone in her immediate circle said it plainly. After I hung up with her father, I sat in the living room for a long time without the television on. The quiet was different now. It was not tense. It was neutral. Her father did not defend her. He did not ask me to reconsider. He simply said they were disappointed. He admitted she had minimized the situation to them at first. She told them it was emotional support, not physical. When they pressed, she admitted it had been physical for months. He sounded tired when he said it. He also told me something else. Harold had been to their house once. Martha introduced him as a friend from the cafe. That detail mattered to me. It meant she was comfortable blending worlds. It was not a reckless mistake. It was integrated into her routine. That same night, I received another email from Martha. Shorter this time. More aggressive. She said blocking her was childish. She said her parents were overreacting. She said I was turning everyone against her instead of handling this privately. I did not respond. The next morning I called the cafe. I did not ask for Harold. I asked for the manager. I identified myself calmly and stated that an employee had been involved in an ongoing relationship with my pregnant wife, who was married. I said I was not threatening anyone. I simply wanted it documented that I was aware of the situation. The manager sounded uncomfortable. He said he would handle it internally. I did not do it out of revenge. I did it because secrecy fuels affairs. Sunlight changes dynamics. Later that afternoon, my lawyer called to follow up. We discussed formal separation. He advised that since she was already residing with her parents voluntarily, I should document the date she left and the reason. He also advised that stopping direct financial support was legally safer now that we were living separately, provided I remained prepared to contribute to child-related expenses. Everything was procedural, calm, structured. That evening, her father called again. He said they were not going to defend what she did. He said they understood if I chose to file for divorce. There was no talk of fixing anything. At that point, there was nothing left to fix. The following week was quiet on my end and chaotic on hers. I found out indirectly. Martha sent 3 more emails over the next few days. The tone kept shifting. First angry, then pleading, then dismissive again. In one message, she said I was destroying our family over pride. In another, she said maybe this separation would show me what I am losing. In the last one, she implied that plenty of men would not have reacted this way. I still did not answer. Instead, I focused on logistics. I changed all my direct deposits to an account she has never had access to. I canceled the secondary credit card under her name. I notified my HR department that I was separating and might need documentation for legal proceedings. I scheduled a home appraisal to establish current property value. If this was going to turn into a divorce, I wanted numbers prepared. Midweek, her father called again. His voice sounded more resigned than before. He said living with her right now was difficult. She was alternating between blaming me and insisting this would all blow over. She was still in contact with Harold. She was still going to the cafe, just now driving there from their house. That detail mattered. It meant she was not even attempting to show regret. Not even symbolically. He told me something else. A few relatives had asked why she was home so suddenly while 6 months pregnant. She told them we were taking space because I was stressed. She did not mention the affair. I thanked him for the information and kept the call short. I am not interested in managing her narrative. I am interested in protecting myself legally and emotionally. That Friday, my lawyer drafted a formal separation agreement. It outlined that she was residing with her parents voluntarily. It stated that the house remained my separate property. It confirmed that I would contribute to documented prenatal and future child-related medical expenses pending paternity confirmation. Clear, measured, precise. I emailed Martha one final time. I attached the draft and wrote that I intend to proceed with formal separation and likely divorce. I stated that further communication should be directed to my attorney. Her response came within 15 minutes. She said I was overreacting. Again, at that point the repetition was almost clinical. After I sent the separation draft, things accelerated. Her next email was not angry. It was strategic. She said I was thinking emotionally and not considering how this would look in court. She said judges favor mothers, especially pregnant ones. She implied that pushing for divorce now could damage my future custody position. I forwarded the message to my lawyer without commentary. He responded within an hour. He said threats disguised as advice are common. He also said that in our state, custody decisions are based on best interest of the child, not pregnancy optics. He advised me to continue documenting everything and to avoid direct arguments. That same weekend, Martha showed up at the house. I saw her car on the driveway camera notification while I was inside. She still did not have a key because I had changed the locks. She knocked. I did not open the door immediately. I checked the camera footage first. She was alone. I opened the door, but stayed in the frame. I did not invite her in. She looked tired, but not remorseful. She said we needed to talk like adults. I told her we could talk outside. She said it was humiliating to stand on the porch of her own home. I corrected her. It is my home. Legally. That did not go over well. She tried a new angle. She said Harold was a mistake. That it got out of hand. That I was being extreme by dismantling our entire life over something that could be fixed with counseling. I told her there is nothing to discuss. The separation paperwork has already been drafted. The process has started. This is no longer a conversation about emotions. It is a legal transition. She stared at me like she did not recognize me. Then she said, "You are not the man I married." I told her that may be true, and I closed the door. For the first time since this started, I did not feel reactive. I felt resolved. The divorce process was not dramatic. It was procedural. Martha signed the separation agreement after her own attorney reviewed it. There were minor revisions, mostly around wording, but the structure stayed intact. She remained at her parents' house. I remained in mine. About 2 months later, she gave birth to a boy. I did not attend the delivery. That decision will probably be judged, but I made it intentionally. I told her parents in advance that I would be present for legal acknowledgement and testing, not emotional theater. They did not argue. The hospital administered the paternity test before I signed the birth certificate. That was a non-negotiable condition from my attorney. Martha called it humiliating. I called it necessary. The results came back 10 days later. He is my son. That confirmation simplified one part of the situation and complicated another. I was relieved, not because I wanted to stay married, but because I did not want an innocent child entangled in uncertainty. The divorce filing moved forward shortly after. Martha attempted one last pivot. She proposed withdrawing the filing and trying counseling now that the baby was here. She said the affair was a symptom of pregnancy stress. She said I was throwing away a family that could still work. I declined. Not angrily. Not emotionally. I said trust is structural. Once it collapses, rebuilding requires genuine accountability. I have not seen that. I have seen minimization, deflection, and pressure. Her parents did not interfere at that stage. In fact, her father called me privately and said he understood my decision. The court finalized the divorce 4 months after our separation. Because the house was separate property and she had not contributed financially during the marriage in a way that altered ownership, it remained mine. We established a formal custody schedule and child support calculation based strictly on income and state guidelines. Clear, defined, enforceable. There were no dramatic courtroom speeches, just signatures. When it was done, I walked out of the courthouse feeling something close to clarity. Not victory, clarity. It has been 8 months since the divorce was finalized. We communicate through a parenting app now. Structured, logged, no side conversations. Exchanges happen in public places or at her parents' house. I do not go inside. I stay consistent. Predictable schedules. Clear boundaries. Martha's tone has shifted over time. The sharpness is still there, but it is muted. Reality has a way of sanding down arrogance. From what I understand, Harold did not turn into a long-term relationship. Once the secrecy and thrill disappeared, so did he. That detail did not bring me satisfaction. It just reinforced what I already knew. It was never about love. It was about novelty. Our son is healthy. That is what matters. When he is with me, the house feels purposeful again. I adjusted my work schedule to accommodate custody days. I hired part-time childcare during office hours. I built routines around stability. No chaos. No unpredictability. Looking back, the turning point was not discovering the emails. It was her response. It was the phrase, "just a bit of fun," delivered without hesitation. That sentence revealed the gap between us more clearly than the affair itself. Some people have asked if I moved too quickly, if I should have tried therapy first, if pregnancy stress justified more patience. Here's my answer. Stress explains behavior. It does not excuse it, and dismissal is more corrosive than betrayal. If she had shown genuine remorse, immediate accountability, and a willingness to repair damage without deflection, the path might have looked different. Instead, she minimized. She blamed. She framed it as entertainment. So I acted. Replacing the locks was not cruelty. It was boundary enforcement. Separating finances was not punishment. It was responsibility. Filing for divorce was not emotional. It was logical. I do not hate her. That would require energy I prefer to invest elsewhere. What I feel now is distance. And distance, in this case, is peace.